Have you ever wondered how a single act of kindness can change not just one life, but an entire community? What if the person you chose to help carried a secret that could destroy everything you've worked for? Would you still take the risk? And what happens when that secret ties you to a past you've been running from for years? Meet Martin Grayson, a grieving cafe owner on the verge of losing everything. One rainy night, he opens his doors to a homeless father and his daughter. A decision that sets off a chain reaction of hope, conflict, and redemption. But this isn't just a story about saving a business. It's about saving lives, confronting prejudice, and finding the courage to fight for what really matters. Stick around to find out how Martin's small act of kindness reveals shocking truths and transforms not just his cafe, but the entire town of Stonehaven. The flickering neon sign outside Grayson's Corner Cafe cast a pale red glow on the rain-slicked pavement. Inside, Martin Grayson leaned against the counter, his gaze fixed on the stack of unpaid bills in front of him. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence, interrupted only by the occasional patter of rain against the windows. He ran a hand through his graying hair and sighed. This place used to mean something, he muttered to himself, glancing around the dimly lit cafe. The red vinyl booths, once filled with laughter and chatter, now sat empty. His fingers tapped on the counter as he calculated how many more days he could keep the lights on. The sound of rain grew heavier, drawing his attention to the window. Outside, under the faint light of a broken street lamp, two figures huddled together, a man and a small child. Grabbing an umbrella, Martin pushed the door open, the cold wind biting his face. "Hey!" he called sharply. The man turned, his worn coat soaked through, while the girl clung to his side. "What are you doing out here?" "We're just staying out of the rain," the man replied, his voice steady but tired. "We'll move along." Martin hesitated, his instincts telling him to send them on their way. Then his eyes met the girl's, a pair of wide, hazel eyes filled with curiosity and exhaustion. Something in her gaze tugged at him. "Come inside," Martin said abruptly, his tone gruff. The man hesitated. "We don't want to impose." "Just for tonight," Martin interrupted, already turning back to the cafe. Before the kid catches pneumonia. The cafe's warmth enveloped the pair as they stepped inside. Martin gestured toward a booth by the window. "Sit there," he muttered. "There's coffee by the counter." The man helped the girl out of her soaked coat, revealing her thin frame and a dress 2 sizes too small. "Thank you," he said quietly. The girl's voice broke through the awkward silence. "This place is nice," she said, her tone bright despite the circumstances. Martin grunted in response, busying himself behind the counter. He glanced over as they settled in. The man poured coffee for himself, while the girl pressed her face against the window, mesmerized by the rain. Hours passed. The man introduced himself as Alex Porter, and the girl as Lily. Alex spoke little, his posture guarded, but Lily's energy filled the space. "How long have you had this cafe?" she asked, her legs swinging under the booth. "Too long," Martin replied, wiping down the counter. "It's pretty," Lily said, undeterred. "Why doesn't anyone come here?" Martin paused, caught off guard by her sincerity. "People change. Neighborhoods change," he said finally. By the time the rain stopped, it was late. Martin gestured toward the back. "There's a storage room you can use for the night. It's not much, but it's dry." Alex looked at him in disbelief. "You're sure? Just don't make me regret it," Martin muttered. The next morning, Martin stood at the counter, staring at the storage room door. He hadn't slept well, second-guessing his decision. The door creaked open, and Alex stepped out cautiously, Lily bounding after him. "Morning, Mr. Grayson," she chirped. "Morning," Martin replied gruffly, watching as she darted to a table and began arranging napkins. "Thank you for letting us stay," Alex said, his voice low. Martin waved him off. "Just don't get in the way." As Lily's laughter filled the cafe, Martin felt something shift. He wasn't sure what it was, but for the first time in a long while, the place didn't feel so empty. The morning light seeped through the dusty windows of the cafe as Martin flipped the closed sign to open. He rubbed his eyes, still groggy from a restless night, and glanced toward the storage room door. The door creaked open, and Alex stepped out cautiously, followed by Lily, who skipped ahead, humming a cheerful tune. "Morning, Mr. Grayson," she chirped, beaming up at him. "Morning," he replied, not quite able to match her enthusiasm. Alex cleared his throat. "Mr. Grayson, I was wondering if there's anything I could do to help out around here." Martin raised an eyebrow. "Help?" Alex nodded. "I used to work in kitchens. I could cook, clean, whatever you need. Just to earn our keep." Martin hesitated, his skepticism evident. "You can cook? Huh? You sure about that?" "Let me prove it," Alex said simply. Curiosity got the better of him. "Fine. The stove's back there," Martin muttered, waving a hand toward the kitchen. Minutes later, the aroma of frying eggs and sizzling bacon filled the cafe. Martin reluctantly followed the smell to the kitchen and watched as Alex expertly plated a simple breakfast, adding a touch of parsley for garnish. "Here," Alex said, placing the plate on the counter. Martin took a bite. His eyes widened, though he quickly masked his surprise. "Not bad," he mumbled. Lily clapped her hands. "See, Dad? I told you you're the best chef." "Don't get ahead of yourself," Martin muttered, but he didn't stop eating. As the morning wore on, a couple of regulars trickled in. Lily took it upon herself to greet each one, her sunny disposition catching even the grumpiest customer off guard. "Hi, welcome to Grayson's Cafe," she said, holding a stack of napkins. One of the regulars, an elderly woman named Mrs. Thompson, chuckled. "Well, aren't you just the sweetest thing? Do you need sugar for your coffee?" Lily asked, her head tilting earnestly. "Just a little," Mrs. Thompson replied, smiling. Martin watched from behind the counter, arms crossed. He hated to admit it, but Lily's energy seemed to brighten the cafe in a way he hadn't seen in years. "Your daughter's a natural," he said to Alex, keeping his voice low. "She's always been like this," Alex replied, pride evident in his tone. "No matter what life throws at us, she keeps smiling." Martin said nothing, but the comment lingered. By the afternoon, the cafe saw a small uptick in customers. A few faces Martin hadn't seen in a while stopped by, lured perhaps by the enticing smells from the kitchen. One of them was Rick Layton, a burly construction worker with a perpetually sour expression. He stomped in and plopped down at the counter. "New help?" Rick asked, jerking his thumb toward Alex, who was in the kitchen. "Something like that," Martin replied curtly. Rick leaned in closer. "I'd watch your back, Martin. People like him. You never know what they're up to." Martin bristled. "He's just trying to get by, like the rest of us." Rick snorted. "Yeah, well, don't say I didn't warn you." Lily approached, seemingly oblivious to the tension. "Hi, sir. Can I get you some coffee?" Rick glared at her, but Lily's smile didn't falter. "Sure, kid," he grumbled. Martin clenched his jaw as he watched the exchange. The day wound down, and Martin locked the front door. Alex and Lily sat at one of the booths, finishing the leftover sandwiches Alex had made. "You're good in the kitchen," Martin admitted, breaking the silence as he sat across from them. "Thanks," Alex replied, surprised by the compliment. "I used to work as a sous chef before everything. What happened?" Alex hesitated, glancing at Lily. "It's a long story. Let's just say life didn't go the way I planned." Lily looked up from her plate. "But now we're here, and it's nice. Isn't it, Dad?" Alex smiled faintly. "Yeah, it is." Martin leaned back, watching the two of them. For a moment, he felt something he hadn't in a long time: warmth. That night, as Martin took out the trash, he noticed something scrawled on the side of the cafe in black spray paint. "Go back where you came from?" His stomach tightened. He looked around, but the street was empty. He grabbed a rag and a bucket of soapy water, scrubbing furiously until his knuckles ached. Inside, Alex was cleaning up, oblivious to what had just happened. Martin debated telling him, but decided against it. "Everything okay?" Alex asked when Martin returned. "Yeah," Martin lied. "Just tired." As he turned off the lights and headed upstairs to his small apartment above the cafe, he couldn't shake the knot in his chest. He had a feeling this was only the beginning. The next morning, Martin stood behind the counter, watching Alex wipe down the freshly cleaned tables. The cafe was quiet, save for the occasional clink of silverware being set. "I've been thinking," Martin said, breaking the silence. Alex looked up. "About what?" "Your cooking," Martin replied, glancing at the menu board. "It's better than anything we've had on the menu in years. I'm considering adding a few of your dishes." Alex blinked in surprise. "Are you sure? This place has its classics. People might not take well to change." "People aren't exactly lining up for the classics," Martin muttered, crossing his arms. "We need to try something different if we're going to survive." A faint smile crossed Alex's face. "Okay, let's do it." "Don't get cocky," Martin warned, but there was a glint of hope in his tone. By lunchtime, a small chalkboard at the counter advertised Alex's new dish, spiced tomato bisque with herb toast. The aroma filled the cafe as Martin carried the first bowl to Mrs. Thompson, one of his longest-standing customers. She adjusted her glasses and peered at it skeptically. "Tomato soup? Huh," she said, poking at it with her spoon. "Just try it," Martin urged. After a cautious sip, her expression softened. This is fantastic," she exclaimed, taking another spoonful. The buzz began to spread, and by mid-afternoon, several younger patrons were eagerly ordering the bisque. Martin glanced at Alex, who was busy plating dishes in the kitchen, and gave a small nod of approval. But not everyone was impressed. As the cafe began to wind down for the day, Rick Layton stomped in and took his usual seat at the counter. Martin braced himself. "New menu items?" Rick said, jerking a thumb toward the chalkboard. Martin nodded. "Alex made it. People seem to like it." Rick leaned in, his voice low. "You're changing too much, Martin. Letting that guy in here. It's not sitting right with folks. This place is supposed to be ours, not some experiment." Martin's jaw tightened. "Rick, he's just trying to make a living. Same as the rest of us." Rick sneered. "I'm telling you, Martin, keep this up and you'll lose more than you gain." Martin didn't respond, but his hands gripped the counter so tightly his knuckles turned white. That evening, Lily skipped between the tables, humming a tune as she carefully wiped them down. Despite the tension in the air, her joy remained unshaken. "Mr. Grayson," she said, approaching Martin, "do you think we'll get more customers tomorrow?" Martin forced a smile. "Maybe, kid. We'll see." "You know," Lily said brightly, "people can be mean sometimes. But my dad says kindness always wins in the end." Martin chuckled despite himself. Your dad's a smart man." "He is," Lily said proudly. "And so are you." Her words stayed with Martin long after she had gone back to her task. Night fell, and Martin was closing up when he noticed something unusual. A faint crunch under his shoe drew his attention to the ground. Shards of glass glittered under the dim streetlight. His heart sank as he looked up. The cafe's front window had been smashed. Spray painted across the remaining glass were the words, "Not welcome." A sickening anger churned in his stomach as he grabbed a broom and began sweeping up the mess. Alex appeared at the door, his face pale as he took in the damage. I'm sorry, Martin. This is because of me." "It's not your fault," Martin said firmly, though his voice wavered. "I should leave," Alex said quietly. "Lily and I." "You're not going anywhere," Martin interrupted, his tone sharp. "This is our fight now." Alex nodded, but doubt clouded his eyes. As they worked together to clean up, Martin couldn't shake the feeling that the fight was just beginning. The cafe buzzed with energy for the first time in years. Tables were pushed together and decorated with mismatched centerpieces. Simple jars filled with fresh daisies, courtesy of Lily. The air smelled of Alex's cooking. Roasted chicken, warm bread, and a medley of spiced vegetables. "Dad, can I help serve the food?" Lily asked, hopping in place beside Alex. "Careful with those trays," Alex said, placing a hand on her shoulder. Martin, watching from behind the counter, smirked. "She's got more enthusiasm than I've seen in this place in a decade." Customers began trickling in, drawn by the buzz Emma's article had generated. Alex moved quickly in the kitchen, preparing plates, while Martin worked the room. "Everything smells amazing," Mrs. Thompson said, settling into a seat. "I haven't seen this many people here since I don't know when." "You've got Alex to thank for that," Martin replied. "This is his show tonight." The evening went better than Martin had dared to hope. Patrons lingered, laughing and chatting, as Lily flitted between tables, refilling drinks. But in the corner, Rick Layton sat with his arms crossed, glaring at Alex through the kitchen window. The next morning, Martin picked up the local paper. On the front page was a photo of the cafe, its glowing sign illuminating a packed room of smiling patrons. "Stonehaven's classic makes a comeback," the headline read. Martin read the accompanying article, where Emma had painted a picture of hope: a struggling cafe, a talented chef, and a determined young girl who brought a community together. "Think this'll bring more folks in?" Alex asked as he poured coffee. Martin handed him the paper. "With any luck, we won't be able to keep them away." Lily peeked over Alex's arm, grinning. "Look, Dad, you're famous." "Well, not quite," Alex chuckled. Later that afternoon, Martin stepped out back to take a breather. Rick was leaning against the wall, a cigarette dangling from his lips. "Busy night?" Rick said, exhaling smoke. "You could say that," Martin replied, wary. Rick flicked the cigarette to the ground and stepped closer. "Listen, Martin, this isn't gonna last. People like Alex, they don't belong here. They never have." Martin's fists clenched, but he kept his voice steady. "He's done more for this place in a few weeks than anyone else has in years." Rick sneered. "You think this town's gonna back you up when it all falls apart? Think again." As Rick walked away, Martin felt a weight settle in his chest. By lunchtime, the cafe was bustling. New customers filled the booths, and even the regulars seemed to be enjoying the change. Alex stood at the pass, shouting orders to Martin. 2 bisques for table 3, and don't forget the side salad." "I'm not deaf, Alex," Martin called back, but there was no edge to his voice. Lily darted between tables, her ponytail bouncing. "Refills?" Anyone need more coffee? A young couple sitting by the window smiled. You're doing a great job, sweetheart, the woman said. Thanks. My dad taught me. Lily beamed. Watching the scene unfold, Martin felt a flicker of pride. Maybe, just maybe, they were turning a corner. As the day wound down and the last customers filtered out, Martin locked the front door and began cleaning up. He stepped outside to take out the trash and froze. Taped to the door was a piece of paper with jagged, angry handwriting. This isn't over. Martin tore it down, his hands trembling. He stuffed the note into his pocket and went back inside, locking the door behind him. What's wrong? Alex asked, noticing Martin's pale face. Nothing, Martin lied. Let's just finish up. But as Martin scrubbed the counters, his mind raced. He wasn't just fighting for the cafe anymore. He was fighting for Alex, Lily, and everything they built together. The cafe was unusually quiet as the morning sun filtered through the repaired windows. Martin stood behind the counter, the threatening note from the previous night crumpled in his hand. He glanced at Alex, who was busy chopping vegetables, his movements deliberate but tense. Martin cleared his throat, his voice cutting through the silence. I need to say something. Alex stopped and looked up, concern etched on his face. Lily, sitting at a booth with her coloring book, perked up. What is it, Mr. Grayson? She asked brightly. Martin stepped out from behind the counter and addressed the few early customers scattered across the cafe. Listen up, everyone, he began, his voice steady but firm. I've been hearing things, rumors, threats, warnings, and I need to make something clear. The room stilled. Even Lily stopped coloring, her wide eyes fixed on Martin. This cafe is a place for everyone, Martin continued. I don't care where you're from or what you've been through. If you're here to work hard and be part of this community, you're welcome. Alex and Lily are staying, and that's final. A smattering of applause came from Mrs. Thompson, who sat near the window. Others murmured in agreement, though a few regulars shot icy glares before standing and walking out. Dad, Lily whispered to Alex, Mr. Grayson's really brave. Alex gave her a faint smile, but worry lingered in his eyes. That night, the cafe was empty, save for Martin, Alex, and Lily. The air felt heavy, as if the tension from earlier still lingered in the walls. As Martin counted the cash register, a loud crash echoed from the back. What the? Martin rushed toward the sound, Alex close behind. They found the storage room door swinging open. Inside, shelves were overturned, supplies scattered across the floor. A rock lay in the center of the chaos, a crude note attached. Leave now. Lily appeared in the doorway, her face pale. What happened? Nothing, sweetheart, Alex said quickly, ushering her back into the dining area. He turned to Martin, his voice low. This is getting out of hand. Martin's fists clenched. They think they can scare us off? Over my dead body. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed in the storage room, Alex sat across from Martin at one of the booths. A single lamp cast long shadows across the cafe. I need to tell you something, Alex said, his voice heavy. Martin looked up from his mug of coffee. What is it? Alex hesitated, his hands gripping the edge of the table. Before I ended up on the streets, I was a sous chef at a big restaurant in the city. I loved that job. It was everything to me and my wife. What happened? Martin asked, leaning forward. There was an embezzlement scandal, Alex admitted. Money went missing, and the owner blamed me. I didn't do it, but I took the fall to protect my wife. She'd been caught up in some paperwork mistakes that could have gotten her arrested. Martin stared at him, the weight of the confession sinking in. Why didn't you fight it? I couldn't risk losing her. But it didn't matter in the end. She died in a car accident not long after. Alex's voice cracked, and he looked away. Since then, it's been just me and Lily. I've been trying to start over, but that stain on my name follows me everywhere. Martin exhaled slowly, anger simmering in his chest. Not at Alex, but at the injustice of it all. You've been through hell, he said finally, but you're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out. The next morning, Martin called Emma Sinclair, the local journalist. When she arrived, notepad in hand, he wasted no time explaining the situation. They're trying to drive us out, Emma, Martin said. I need your help. Emma frowned. What kind of threats are we talking about? Graffiti, vandalism, notes. They even broke into the storage room last night, Martin said, his frustration evident. This isn't just about the cafe anymore. It's about standing up for what's right. Emma nodded, determination lighting up her face. I'll write another piece, but we need to do more. A public show of support, an event to rally the community. Another dinner? Alex asked, stepping out of the kitchen. Bigger, Emma said. A block party. Music, food, the works. Show everyone what this cafe stands for. Martin hesitated, but then nodded. Let's do it. The block party was in full swing by sunset. The street outside the cafe was lined with tables, fairy lights strung between lampposts. Alex's food was the centerpiece, and live music echoed through the square. Lily darted between guests, handing out flyers and laughing with other children. Martin stood near the entrance, greeting everyone who came by. But as the night wore on, Rick and a group of men appeared, their presence souring the festive atmosphere. Rick stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Martin. You think this little party changes anything? Rick sneered. You're still ruining this place. Letting them in? Martin stood his ground. If ruining this place means bringing people together and giving them hope, then yeah, I'm ruining it. Rick scoffed. You'll regret this. Before Rick could say more, a voice cut through the crowd. You're the one who doesn't belong here, Rick, Emma said, stepping forward. This town needs unity, not hatred. The crowd murmured in agreement, and Rick's supporters began to back away. Rick glared at Martin one last time before storming off, his defeat palpable. As the party continued, Martin looked around at the smiling faces, the lively music, and the glowing lights. For the first time in years, he felt something he thought he'd lost forever: hope. The early morning sun cast warm golden light through the cafe's spotless windows. For the first time in years, the space felt alive, not just bustling, but brimming with hope. The faint smell of freshly baked bread wafted through the air as Martin stood outside, unveiling the cafe's new sign, Grayson and Porter's Classic Eats. The bold, fresh lettering gleamed in the light. Alex stepped out beside him, Lily trailing behind. It looks perfect, Alex said quietly, his voice tinged with pride. Martin grunted, though a small smile played at the corners of his mouth. You've earned it. Does this mean you're finally admitting I'm not just freeloading? Alex teased. Don't push your luck, Martin shot back, but there was no heat in his words. Lily beamed up at the sign. Our names are together. That means we're like family, right? Martin's smile softened. Yeah, kid. Like family. That afternoon, Martin drove Alex and Lily to their new apartment. It was a modest place on the edge of town, but the bright blue curtains fluttering in the windows gave it a cheerful charm. Inside, Lily led Martin by the hand to her bedroom. Look, Mr. Grayson, I have my own bed now. She pointed to a small twin bed adorned with a colorful patchwork quilt. "Looks like you hit the jackpot," Martin said, glancing around the room. Crayon drawings of flowers and the cafe's logo already covered the walls. Alex leaned against the door frame, watching the scene. "Thanks for helping us get here, Martin. I don't think we could have done this without you. You did the hard part," Martin replied gruffly, but the warmth in his tone betrayed his pride. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wrapped box. "Housewarming gift." Lily ripped open the paper to reveal a hand-carved wooden sign that read, "Home Sweet Home." Her eyes widened with delight. "It's perfect. Thank you, Mr. Grayson." "Don't mention it," Martin said, clearing his throat as he fought back emotion. Back at the cafe, the lunch rush was in full swing. Every table was occupied, and the hum of lively conversation filled the air. The mix of old regulars and curious newcomers gave the place a sense of unity Martin hadn't seen in years. "Order up," Alex called from the kitchen, sliding a tray of steaming dishes onto the counter. Martin delivered the plates, pausing to chat with customers. "How's everything tasting?" he asked a family near the window. "Delicious," the father replied. "You've really turned this place around." Emma Sinclair sat at the counter, her notepad in hand. "The buzz around here is incredible," she said to Martin. "People love a good comeback story." Martin poured her a fresh cup of coffee. "It's not just a comeback. It's a new start." As the afternoon wound down, Martin stepped outside to catch a breath. Across the square, he spotted Rick Layton loading boxes into the back of a truck. Rick's construction site had been abandoned for weeks, and the man's face was etched with bitterness. Emma appeared beside Martin, following his gaze. "Looks like Rick's finally throwing in the towel." "Good riddance," Martin muttered. Emma smirked. "Think he'll miss the cafe?" "Not my problem," Martin replied, turning back toward the cafe, his shoulders lighter. That evening, after the cafe had closed, Martin, Alex, and Lily sat together at a booth. The dining room was quiet, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator. On the table were 3 plates of Alex's spiced tomato bisque, paired with freshly baked bread. "To new beginnings," Alex said, raising his glass of lemonade. "To family," Lily chimed in, lifting her cup with both hands. Martin hesitated, then raised his coffee mug. "To sticking together." They clinked glasses, laughter bubbling in the quiet space. For the first time in years, Martin didn't feel the weight of his losses pressing down on him. Instead, he felt something he hadn't dared to hope for. A future worth looking forward to. As we saw in the story of the heart of Stonehaven Cafe, a single act of kindness can ripple outward, transforming lives and communities in ways we never imagined. What would you do if you were in Martin's shoes? Would you take the risk of supporting someone despite the potential backlash, or would you play it safe to protect your own peace? And what would happen if secrets from the past came knocking on your door? Let us know in the comments below. Your perspective might inspire someone else today. If you enjoyed this story and want more tales of resilience, redemption, and the power of human connection, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story that can change the way you see the world. Together, let's continue exploring the incredible impact of kindness, courage, and community. See you in the next video.